Hey, welcome to the Shift Show, where we bring spirit to bear on trending issues. And I'm Christopher McClure, and today's episode is entitled Evolutionary Shift. So, the Shift Show, welcome to the Shift Show. This vlogcast is about shifting, it's about collective shifting, individual and collective shifting. And what I'd like to do is to start addressing the issues that prevent us from individually shifting and from collectively shifting. Uh, and like I usually do with these vlogcasts, I use the ancient enneagram to organize ideas. So I'm going to share my screen, and we'll get going with this. So yeah, if we look at first of all, let's talk about evolutionary shift. What that means? It's it's about it's about evolution, and it's about us both individually and as a species moving to the next level of consciousness. Uh, a level of consciousness that will match our will be able to meet the demands of the times of our situation. Um, and so one of the things that comes up, point one here, is comfort versus risk. So when for an organism to survive, it has to grow, right? And and I see, excuse me, I see comfort and risk as two sides of the coin of growth. You've got to stretch, you've got to reach, forward in order to grow. Um, but if you do that too much, you become unstable, and if you become too unstable, then you can't sustain the growth that you're trying to having occur. So, and of course, if you're too sort of aligned with your comfort, you don't want to take any risks, and you just kind of stagnate where you are. So that's the I think the helpful thing here is to realize that you've got to keep growing, and and comfort is important, but the what seems to be the path forward is going to have some sense of risk about it, and we've got to have the courage to go ahead and step in that direction, and then allow ourselves to stabilize after that. Another issue regarding evolutionary shift is distraction. So we live in a culture that's just teeming um, with information, and that information is let's just say it's neutral, and we're the ones who have to make sense out of the information, and which means that we have to actually know what information to pay attention to. We there are things on our path that are, I would call, necessities. There's I mean, we can make a list of things like climate change and pollution and violence and corruption, and these are things that um, we can easily become distracted from. In fact, I think I believe that, without getting political here, I believe that there's certain people in power who actually, if there's something that's coming to the surface that they don't want to be seen, they'll actually create a distraction, and then people, the general populace will be looking. They'll start looking over there, and they'll just forget about this thing, and then until that goes away, and it's completely missed. So um, I think we have to keep keep our values up here. Um, we have to keep our values in mind, so we know what to be looking for and what to be avoiding, what to be looking through. Um, and in part of what happens in this process of growing is we come into we have to face parts of ourselves that we didn't really know um, were there. Usually they're the flip side of what of a characteristic of ourselves that we would consider good. And the flip side is what's commonly called shadow. Um, so we the general tendency is that we don't want to look at our shadow. We don't want to own it because it's uncomfortable, and it it makes us uh, appear in not a good light, you know. Um, and so we kind of avoid. We just ignore that this is going on. That this is actually a way that I am. That maybe I need to improve. But what happens in that process, what's forced to happen, is that we start to see that part of ourselves in the outside world, in people and situations. Um, there's this phrase that I learned from dream work, which is if you spot it, you got it, and I found it to be so true. It's like if you're if you're seeing anything in the outside world and you have any kind of charge or judgment about it, it's you can just guarantee that same thing is in yourself, and you're avoiding it. Um, so this process is a sobering process. When we get back to comfort and risk, that we've got to risk, seeing ourselves in. We got to risk seeing the parts of ourselves, our weaknesses, that are not uh, you know it's not our strengths, but it is. When we're able to do that, when we're able to actually look at our shadow, then we become more whole. We become um, m- more of the people we're ultimately trying to be. And very often where we get to see our shadow is in relationship, and especially in like a marriage, or a really close partnership. And in order to navigate, the mirroring that comes up, that there's they say that one of the best ways to to know yourself is through relationship, because um, a close relationship just begs for those parts of ourselves that are unconscious to come to the surface. Um, but it can really, speaking of shift show, that can really turn into a shit show when you don't have any tools. Like the common reaction is that when somebody points out, when you see something in somebody else that you want, and you kind of go after that with full velocity. Um, you just there there's antagonism, and the whole and communication can break down really easily. So tolerance is a term that I use to describe this general kind of nonviolent communication toolkit, which is number one, making I statements. Which means it's like, all right, from my perspective, this is what I'm seeing going on. It's like you you're you're sort of uh, right at the get go. You're curbing the tendency to set yourself up as an authority, and you're making it very clear that this is just my own perspective and that I could be projecting, and but that's I'm owning that this could be my projection, but this is what I see. So you have I statements, and then on the other side of the communication, you have mirroring and validating. So then oh well, I what I hear you saying is that you're seeing it this way, and I can understand how you would see it that way, and you would have these feelings about it. And then in that process, the person expressing gets to identify their need. Like, so in this situation, I'm needing, such and such, and in the mirroring and validating, that person can validate. I hear that this is what you need, and then the last this is like 4 points of this, that they're and the fourth point is to make a request and not a demand. In other words, I have this need for this, so I was wondering, in the future if you could do this, and it basically what it does. This process is it gets things down into a much more vulnerable kind of experience and exchange, and so the tendency for defensiveness and offensiveness is greatly reduced. So tolerance, very very important, and what really what we're getting at here, in order for evolutionary shift to happen, is we've got to raise the value of collaboration. Oh, I see that I have one too many L's in this here. Let's see, can I do this? Just fix this. Yeah, one too many L's. There we go. That, for a lot of people, collaboration has been kind of a nice idea, and they try to do it when it's convenient to do, but really when it comes down to it, is most people think that that their idea of how something should be done is the best idea, and that other people should follow that. I've learned this lesson really hard. So I'm married, and my wife is actually my musical partner, and I have more experience with music, and so I've had the tendency to think, oh, I know the best way to do this, and have gotten into so much kind of trouble, so much contention regarding that, and what I had to learn was that it's like, if I want to do a musical project on my own, then I get to make all the decisions, and choose. Yeah, I get to choose. But if I'm going to do a project with somebody else or a group of people, I'm agreeing to collaborate. I'm agreeing to make the the fulfillment of every person involved more important than my ideas about what I think is the best way to do it. Now, it's important here to not throw the baby out with the bathwater. All I'm saying is that there's values, right? There's a number of values, and I'm saying that collaboration needs to probably be at the top of the list. And my ideas about how something should be done is still in the mix. It's just not as important. And everybody's ideas about how it should be done are in the mix. But the main thing, the most important thing, is collaboration. Now, one of the reasons it's this is a hard, shift to make, is such a, it's almost like a backwards turn, because usually in order, at least in the initial stages, in order to collaborate, it takes so much longer than if, it's like, I know how to do this. Just follow my lead here. I know that, it's like, but that's not the point. The point is not, how to get this done quickly. I mean, maybe there'll be times when that's important, and then you make an agreement to, follow somebody's idea. But overall, it's about collaboration, and everybody, and unless like for instance with my wife and I, unless we both feel fulfilled by the product, then it's not a true collaboration. So, yeah, we really, one of the things you have to give up is efficiency. Um, but one of the things that you have to um, honor and respect is all the values going on, including collaboration, including your own, you know. Um, but so evolutionary shift is really, it's I think it's about shifting values, or shifting the priority of values. And so, going to this last point, spirit and matter. We've been for eons. We've been in this an imbalance in equation. Like a universal equation which is imbalanced, which is that in terms of humans, matter is more important than spirit. And there were times in the past where that there was more of a balance. Like legends of King Arthur, and and fairy folk. There was more of a, and in those there was more of a balance between spirit and matter, and um, and there was more magic in the world. But we've gone away from that, and we have to go. We have to return to a balance. It's going to be a modern balance, but it's still a balance of matter and spirit. So, yeah, I'm going to stop my share here, and so what you know the value, I think, of uh, you know paying attention to the issues regarding evolutionary shift is that if we're aware of how we need to grow, then we're just going to be more focused, and less distracted by things that get in the way of that. So I'd be very interested in anybody's input on this. What do you um, what are the issues that you see in evolutionary shift? And in any of these issues I've brought it, do you have any experience with them? And just so please leave any comments and suggestions. Um, and yeah, just leave them below, and I'd love to hear from you. So thank you. This is Christopher McClure, and welcome to the Shift Show.